Hi there. Welcome to Reddit Confessions. Grab your tea, your coffee, or whatever gets you through uncomfortable truths, because this one is not just a story. It's what happens when silence becomes louder than screaming. She was screaming my name in the rain the last time I saw her face. Not crying. Screaming. Her heels were sinking into the wet dirt by the mailbox. Soaked from the storm she never checked the forecast for. She didn't bring a jacket. She never did. That was always my job. I always brought the umbrella. I always reminded her about the weather. But not that day. That day, I just stood there, bone dry, watching her scramble through puddles, mascara melting like ink from a spilled apology. And I didn't say a single word. I got in the car, started the engine, watched the wipers swipe away her reflection from the windshield. She pounded on the glass. "Del, please, don't do this. Can we just talk?" I shifted into reverse. And as the car rolled away from the house we picked out of a catalog together 8 years ago, she stood barefoot in the gravel, holding a photograph. One I left on the kitchen counter on purpose. The one with me, her, and him at that fake charity gala she swore was just a work thing. The one where he had his hand too close to her back. Where I smiled like an idiot in the background, while their eyes were locked on each other. That photo was the whole story. I didn't need to say anything. That wasn't the beginning. But it was the moment I stopped pretending. See, when you live with someone who gradually shifts from partner to stranger, the worst part isn't the cheating. It's the erosion. The way they stop laughing at your jokes. The way they turn their body slightly away from you in bed. The way they answer your texts 2 hours late, with one-word replies and a heart emoji that feels automated. Cassie didn't break my heart in one go. She carved at it like a sculptor, slow, methodical. Until one day, there was nothing left but shape. She said things like, "You're overreacting. You're imagining it. You're so insecure, Delaware." But I wasn't imagining the way she started locking her phone, or how she flinched when I walked past her during late-night Zoom calls that required full makeup and perfume, or how she forgot my birthday, my 40th birthday, but remembered to post a story from girls' night with him tagged in the background. Yeah. I noticed. I just didn't say anything, because somewhere along the way, I learned to survive by staying quiet. Until I didn't. The day I left, I didn't pack a suitcase. I didn't leave a letter. I didn't slam doors or burn clothes or make some melodramatic scene like they do in the movies. I just left. I took the keys to my late dad's pickup. He'd kept it in the garage since '92, and drove 6 hours north to a cabin I hadn't visited in 12 years. No Wi-Fi, no reception, just the sound of trees groaning and my thoughts bouncing off the wooden walls. I stayed gone for weeks. No calls. No messages. I thought she'd move on easily. She didn't. 3 days in, she emailed me. Subject: "Can you come home?" 4 days later: "Where are you? Delmar. I'm sorry. Please just let me explain." Then it escalated. "Who told you? Is this about that dinner? It wasn't what you think. I love you. Please, please just answer." I didn't. She started calling my old job, messaging my friends, even went to my cousin's place asking if I was dead. And now she's unraveling, posting old photos of us online with captions like, "Missing my best friend. Sometimes we lose the people who loved us most." Comments under the photos are all sympathy and hearts. But I know the truth, and she knows I do. She just didn't expect that I'd walk away in silence, and mean it. The first time I turned my phone back on, it buzzed so violently I dropped it. 78 missed calls. Cassie's number filled most of the list. The rest were from people I hadn't heard from in years. Her sister, my mechanic, even her college roommate, Kendra, who once drunkenly told me I wasn't Cassie's type, but at least I was safe. I sat on the cabin floor, staring at the screen like it was some cursed relic. I didn't open a single message. I didn't call anyone back. But that's when the truth finally settled over me. Not like a storm, but like fog, slow, suffocating, and absolute. She was unraveling. I could feel it even from miles away. Cassie wasn't the type to admit fault. Ever. She could rationalize anything. Once, she'd convinced herself that forgetting our anniversary was somehow my fault because I didn't leave any hints. That's how she worked, guilt as currency, gaslighting as routine. So when the first voicemail played, her voice trembled so badly I barely recognized her. Delaware, it's me. God, I don't even know if you're listening. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't think it would go that far. I didn't know how to stop it. Please call me. The second voicemail was colder, defensive. I don't deserve to be ghosted like this. If you have something to say it. Be a man and talk to me. The third? Tears. Desperation. I can't sleep. I see you everywhere. Please just tell me you're alive. You don't have to come back. Just tell me where you are. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I turned the phone off again, and then I threw it into the lake. It sank quickly, disappearing beneath the dark water with barely a ripple, just like I had. For the next few days, I kept busy with meaningless chores. I chopped wood even though I didn't need to. I reorganized the tiny kitchen drawers just to feel control over something. At night, I sat in the silence and let the memory of her fill the room. Not the good memories, though. No, the haunting ones. The moment I saw her and him standing a little too close behind the reception tent at her company's summer party. The way her voice would drop to a whisper anytime I entered the room while she was on her phone. The faint cologne that lingered on her jacket. Definitely not mine. Definitely not hers. But still, the worst part? I had no proof. Nothing solid. Just 1,000 fragments my heart had pieced together into a picture I didn't want to see. And yet, I knew. Then something strange happened. One night, around 3 a.m., headlights beamed through the trees and onto the cabin's front wall. I sat up straight, my pulse hammering in my throat. Nobody knew I was here. Not even my brother. I killed the lantern and crept to the window. A car was idling at the end of the dirt path. Black SUV. Modern. Definitely not local. Then, slowly, the driver's side door opened. She stepped out. Cassie. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, not styled. She was wearing an old hoodie, my hoodie, and sneakers, soaked from the muddy road. She looked around like a woman lost in a dream. She didn't walk to the door. She just stood there, hugging herself, scanning the darkness. Her lips moved, and even though I couldn't hear her, I knew she was saying my name. I ducked away from the window and sat on the floor, heart racing. How the hell did she find me? She stayed there for maybe 10 minutes. Then she climbed back into the car, turned off the engine, and just sat, and sat, for hours. By sunrise, she was gone. I found a note under the welcome mat later. The handwriting was shaky. Just one sentence. If you ever want the truth, I'll give it to you. I just hope it's not too late. I burned the note in the fireplace. Not out of anger, out of fear. Because part of me still wanted to believe there was something left to save. And that, I realized, was the most dangerous part of all. The strangest part wasn't that she found me. It was that she didn't knock. She didn't scream or beg or call out my name into the wilderness like some unhinged soap opera scene. No, Cassie just stood there. That fact haunted me. It made her feel human again. Like the girl I once met in line at a laundromat, who laughed too hard when I spilled detergent all over my shoes. For the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't numbness. I hated her, yes, but hate, as I was learning, is still a form of connection. And I didn't know if I could afford to feel anything for her ever again. I didn't return to town right away. I couldn't risk her seeing me. I survived off canned food, boiled water, and the occasional drive to a gas station 30 minutes north where I kept my head down and paid in cash. One time, I thought I saw her car parked behind a truck stop diner. I didn't even pull in, I just kept driving. My fingers were shaking on the wheel, but not because I was afraid she'd yell at me. I was afraid I'd listen to her. Afraid I'd give her the space to lie, to twist it all, to say, "It wasn't what it looked like, Delaware. I just needed attention. You were always so distant." She used to say that. Distant. As if I wasn't the one making all the effort. As if she wasn't the one constantly tilting her phone away from me. As if I wasn't the one planning date nights. begging her to take a weekend trip while she just had too much work. I went digging through my old laptop that night. I hadn't touched it since moving to the cabin. There was a folder, Untitled 3, that I had completely forgotten about. Inside were screenshots, photos I'd taken of texts I wasn't supposed to see, conversations she'd left open by accident. One stood out, a message from a number labeled simply as A. He's harmless. You don't need to feel guilty. Honestly, it's like he doesn't even notice. I stared at that sentence for so long, my eyes went dry. Harmless. That was me. Delmar the harmless. Delmar who never yelled. Delmar who picked her up when she drank too much at work parties. Delmar who ironed her blouses before interviews. Delmar who couldn't tell the truth from hope until it was too late. I slammed the laptop shut. That's when I made a decision. I needed to know why. Not for closure, I didn't even believe in closure anymore, but for clarity. For the sake of all the years I spent believing we were a team. I needed her to see that I wasn't just going to disappear without holding a mirror to her face. I wasn't sure how I'd do it, but I knew it had to be on my terms. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, a package arrived. No return address, just my name scribbled in red marker. Inside was a manila envelope and a USB drive. No note. I stared at it for hours before I finally plugged it in. First, just photos. Dozens. Cassie in a hotel room. Cassie at a rooftop bar. Cassie leaning into a man I didn't recognize until I did. It was Alex, the senior project consultant from her job. Married. 2 kids. He'd come to our house once for dinner. Complimented my grilling. Shook my hand. There were videos too. Nothing graphic. Nothing that would break YouTube's rules, but just enough to leave no doubts. Him kissing her neck while she laughed in a silk robe. Her whispering, "This is the real me," before they clinked wine glasses. The timestamp on one clip. The night she told me she had an emergency board call, and I brought her soup to the bedroom door. I thought I'd scream, punch a wall, collapse, but I didn't. I just sat in the dark, the glow of the screen burning into my brain like a brand. That's when I realized the most painful part wasn't the betrayal. It was that she was so casual about it. Like I didn't matter at all. Like I never had. By morning, I had a plan. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't argue. But I would remind her exactly who I was. Not harmless. Not distant. And definitely not done. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I lay on the floor in front of the fireplace, staring at the crackling logs like they might reveal some hidden message. Some answer to the ache that sat like a rock in the center of my chest. I could still hear her voice from the video. That stupid laugh. That fake, breathy tone she used when she was trying to be seductive. Like she was auditioning for a role that didn't belong to her. It made my skin crawl. The most nauseating part wasn't that she'd been unfaithful. It was how effortlessly she had done it. How comfortable she looked lying in bed with him, sipping wine that I probably paid for. All those years of budgeting and skipping little luxuries so she could feel pampered on weekends. I saved, scrimped, made things work. Meanwhile, she was playing house with someone else in 4-star hotel rooms. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to stay hidden anymore. Not completely. Not like some scared animal waiting for the storm to pass. I was going to send her a message. Not words, not explanations. Just enough to shake her foundation the way she'd cracked mine. I drove to town mid-morning and picked up a fresh SIM card and burner phone. No apps. No contacts. Just a clean slate. On my way back, I stopped by the post office. I had already printed one of the images from the USB. A photo of her and Alex, arms locked, toasting something over dinner in a candlelit restaurant. I chose that one on purpose because her smile in it was the exact same smile she used to give me when I brought her coffee in bed. And seeing it reused like that, recycled and handed off to someone else like an old gift, made me feel like a discarded blueprint. I mailed the photo in a plain white envelope addressed to our home. No return. No note. Just the picture. The way I figured it, she'd open it and know immediately that I'd seen everything, and that I wasn't as harmless as she thought. That night, I turned on the burner phone and waited. It didn't take long. At exactly 9:12 p.m., she called. I didn't answer. Then she texted, Delmar, we need to talk. I don't know what you saw, but please give me a chance to explain. A few minutes later, I was stupid. I made a mistake. But it didn't mean anything. He means nothing. And then, as if trying to erase it all with one sentence. I love you. I miss you. Just come home. It took everything in me not to laugh. Or cry. Or both. Because now that I had distance, now that I'd been completely gutted and emptied out, I could finally see her for what she really was. A master of rewriting history. She'd always been good at that. When she spent $300 on a few groceries, it wasn't wasteful. It was her treating us. When she ignored my texts for hours, it wasn't disrespectful. It was mental space. When she flirted with the bartender on our anniversary, it was just her way of being social. But when I needed space, when I asked questions, suddenly I was insecure, controlling, too intense. She couldn't handle silence. That's what this was really about. Not guilt, not love, just panic. My absence had created a vacuum she couldn't manipulate. There was no reaction for her to feed off. No arguments to twist. Just the hollow, echoing silence of someone who finally stopped playing. So I sent her one message back. Just one. A photo of the cabin window. Rain streaking down the glass. My reflection barely visible. No caption. And then I turned the phone off again. The next morning, I found tire tracks in the mud along the side trail leading toward the lake. She'd come back, probably while I was sleeping. I checked the front porch, nothing. But when I walked around the side, I found a note under a rock beside the empty firewood stack. It was handwritten, crumpled from the damp air. You win, okay? You've proven your point. I'm falling apart. I made a mistake. But you can't just erase us. You can't. You're not built that way. I know you. I love you. Let me fix this. I reread the last sentence over and over. Let me fix this. It hit me harder than anything else she'd done. Because even now, even after everything, she still thought this was something she could patch up with a conversation and crocodile tears. Like love was a crack in the drywall and not a shattered foundation buried beneath years of lies. I didn't burn this note. I nailed it to the back wall of the cabin. As a reminder, not of her, but of the version of me I refused to become again. I used to think that grief came all at once. A single moment of collapse, a scream into a pillow, a broken glass on the kitchen floor. But that's not how it works. Not when the person who hurt you keeps trying to crawl back into your life like nothing happened. Grief becomes a series of replays. Every word they once said gets filtered through new meaning. Every memory becomes a question mark. And the worst part? It doesn't even end when they say, I'm sorry. That's when it mutates into something else entirely. That's when it starts taunting you. 3 days after I found her second note, I received an envelope. This time, not from her. There was no name, no return address, just my name scribbled in green ink and a strange wax seal on the back. I opened it cautiously, half expecting another guilt trip or staged confession. But inside was something unexpected. A printed email thread. Took me a few minutes to realize what I was looking at. Cassie had been emailing someone named DC. Someone she clearly didn't know very well. The messages were spaced out over a few months, each more desperate than the last. She was trying to hire a private investigator. To find me. He's gone. Just vanished. I think he may have seen something. I don't know what he knows. But if you can help me locate him, I'll pay whatever's needed. I felt my stomach twist. Not because she was looking for me, that was obvious. But because even now, she was trying to control the narrative. Not, I betrayed him and he left. But, he vanished mysteriously and I need to find him for closure. Like I was some missing object she lost at the airport. Like I wasn't a person, just her unresolved consequence. I don't know who sent the envelope. Maybe the investigator got cold feet. Maybe someone close to her decided I had a right to know. But whoever it was, they saw through her. That same day, I walked into the woods behind the cabin and screamed. Just once. Just long enough to let something leave my body. I don't know what exactly it was, rage, maybe. Or maybe just the version of me that still wanted her to understand. Because here's the truth. I didn't want her to fix anything anymore. I wanted her to sit in it. I wanted her to feel what it was like to walk around with a memory that had curdled. That night, I drove into town under cover of darkness and parked across from our old house. The lights were on. Our porch light, the one I installed with motion detection, flickered every few seconds like it was shorting out. I stayed in the car, just watching. Not out of nostalgia. Not because I missed her. Because I needed to see what regret looked like. And I saw it. She came out onto the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked thinner. Her hair was tied back in a way she never used to wear it. No makeup. No glass of wine in her hand like before. Just a shell. She sat on the swing. Alone. And for the first time since I left, I saw her cry. But I still didn't feel what I thought I would. There was no triumph. No justice. No relief. Only an ache deeper than before. I drove back without turning on the radio. Every bump in the road felt like a pulse in my chest. When I got back to the cabin, there was a voicemail waiting on the burner phone. She had found the number somehow, maybe guessed it, maybe traced it, maybe fate just likes chaos. I played it once. Her voice was soft, broken in a way I didn't recognize. I was selfish. I know that now. I didn't lose you when you walked out. I lost you a long time ago and I just pretended I hadn't. I thought I could keep you in my orbit while chasing something new. And I hate myself for that. I don't want forgiveness. I just want you to know. I did love you. I just didn't know how to be good to you. And now I can't find my way back to who I was when you loved me. She hung up after that. No begging. No anger. And for the first time, I cried. Not because I believed her, but because I knew there was still a part of me that wanted to. That's the problem with silence. It gives you space to heal. But it also gives you space to remember who you were before they broke you. And sometimes that's the hardest part of all. I thought the crying would empty me out. I really did. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I finally let the pressure break through, I'd feel some kind of relief. But that's not what happened. Instead, the tears turned into nausea. My chest felt tight for hours afterward, and I couldn't even explain why. Maybe it was because her voicemail reminded me of who I used to be. The man who would have believed every word she said. The one who would have pulled into the driveway, climbed the porch steps, and wrapped her in a hug, whispering that love means working through mistakes. That version of me is dead. And the saddest thing is, I think she knows it too. The next morning, I took a long walk along the lake trail. The fog hung low, smothering everything in a blanket of gray, like the world itself didn't want to be seen. I watched a loon dive under the water and disappear for a full minute before resurfacing with something squirming in its beak. The whole time, I kept wondering, why did I come here? Not just physically, but emotionally. Why this place? Why silence? Why retreat? And the answer was simple. Because I needed to feel small. I'd spent so many years letting Cassie become the center of gravity in my life. Her moods, her ambitions, her cold spells that I wrote off as stress, her choices that I twisted myself around to support. I gave and gave until there was nothing left to hold on to except the idea that someday, if I just loved her enough, she'd stop treating me like an extra in her own story. She never did. The silence here reminded me that the world doesn't revolve around her. And maybe, just maybe, it never should have revolved around me either. When I got back to the cabin, there was something new waiting. A cardboard box, neatly placed in front of the door. Taped shut, no label, no note. For a full hour, I didn't touch it. I just stared at it from the window like it might explode. But curiosity eats away at you like rust, and eventually I gave in. Inside were objects I hadn't seen in months. My worn leather wallet, the one I thought I lost. My wedding band. A stack of photos, many from the early years. Cassie and I in thrift store Halloween costumes. Her dancing in the living room in socks. Me asleep on the couch with our dog curled on my chest. I was thinner back then. Happier. Or maybe just more naive. At the bottom of the box was a journal. Mine. The one I kept hidden in the back of my office drawer. the one where I scribbled my thoughts during the last 2 years of our marriage. I never told her it existed, and yet, here it was, returned to me like a stolen artifact. I opened it slowly. Every page was where I left it. My handwriting, my sadness, my attempts to understand her. And then, between 2 entries I knew I never wrote, there it was. A letter. Her handwriting this time. I read it. I shouldn't have, but I did. And I'm sorry. Not because I invaded your privacy, though I am, but because I didn't know how deeply I'd hurt you until I saw it through your words. I always thought I was the one sacrificing everything. I always thought you were distant because you didn't want me. But I see now, you were pulling away because you were surviving. And I made you feel like survival was a weakness. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I hope someday you'll find someone who doesn't make you feel like loving them is a burden. That was the first time I'd seen real honesty from her in years. And it made everything worse. Because now I couldn't hate her the way I wanted to. Because now I saw the pieces of her that were still human. I threw the journal across the room. Not in rage, but in defeat. I didn't want her vulnerability. I didn't want her redemption. I didn't want to wonder if maybe, in some alternate timeline, we could have been okay. I just wanted peace. But peace isn't something you find in a cabin or a journal or a voicemail. Peace is what's left when the fire goes out and you stop staring at the ashes hoping they'll speak. The next day, I packed my things. Not to go back, but to disappear again, deeper this time. Because she might be looking for closure. But I wasn't. I was done playing ghost. It was time to become a shadow. By the time the sun cracked through the pine trees the following morning, I was already halfway down the gravel road with the cabin in my rearview mirror. I didn't look back. Not once. There was nothing left there for me. Just the ghosts of a life I didn't recognize anymore, and the echo of a woman's voice that once felt like home and now sounded like static. I didn't have a destination. That was the point. Somewhere between leaving her and finding myself, I realized I didn't want to rebuild anything in the ruins of what we had. I wanted a clean slate. One where her name didn't exist in the air I breathed. I took back roads for hours, stopping only for gas and black coffee that tasted like regret. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check the time. I just drove until I reached the edge of a small town that barely had a name. No cell towers, no chain stores. No one who'd ever seen my face or heard my story. Perfect. I found a roadside inn, paint peeling, a crooked sign that said vacancy in flickering neon. The kind of place people forget exists, tucked between silence and survival. I paid in cash and took the key to room 5. It smelled like pine cleaner and old cigarettes. The mattress sagged. The TV didn't work. I loved it. It was nothing like the curated life Cassie and I built together. The one full of mid-century furniture and white-walled perfection. This place was honest. Broken in ways that didn't try to hide it. It made me feel real again. For a few days I vanished completely. I sat in that room and wrote. Not poetry. Not some self-therapy manifesto. I just wrote down every detail I remembered. Not of her betrayal, but of me. Who I used to be before everything turned into filtered smiles and unspoken disappointments. I wrote about the kid who dreamed of playing piano for a living, who used to walk 3 miles just to take lessons from a man with no teeth but perfect pitch. I wrote about the way I used to laugh loud, shameless, not afraid of echo. I wrote about the first time I fell in love with her, and the last time I realized she no longer loved me. And then, on the 5th night, I made the mistake of turning on the burner phone. Not to call anyone, just curiosity, or maybe weakness. I didn't expect the flood. 43 unread messages. Some from people I barely remembered. One from her mother, which caught me off guard. It said, "You may not care, but she's not doing well. I'm worried about her. She hasn't gone to work in 2 weeks." There were 2 voicemails from her boss, oddly polite, asking if I could confirm Cassie was safe and if I had any insight into her state of mind. And then there was the last one, from Cassie herself, timestamped just the day before. She sounded quiet, not broken, not dramatic, just tired. "I don't know if you'll ever listen to this, and I'm not calling to explain anything anymore. I don't have the right, but I need to tell you one thing. I was wrong. Not just for what I did, but for how I treated your love like a backup plan. Like something that would always be there no matter how far I pushed. I see now that I never really knew what it meant to be loved for real. Not until you left. And I'm scared, Delmar. Not because you're gone, but because I think I finally understand what I lost. And I don't think I'll ever be whole again. I hope, wherever you are, you're healing. I really do. I played it twice. Not out of longing, but because her voice didn't match the one I remembered. She didn't sound manipulative. She didn't sound like the woman who once told me, "You're too sensitive," when I cried during a movie. She just sounded hollow. I turned the phone off again and threw it under the bed. She wanted peace now. But peace isn't a confession. It's not a voicemail. It's not even remorse. Peace is knowing you can walk away without needing to be seen. So that night, I walked into the town bar, ordered a soda, and asked the man behind the counter if they had a piano. He looked surprised, nodded toward the far corner where a dusty upright stood half forgotten. I sat down and played, just for me. No audience. No wife waiting to roll her eyes at how melancholy I sounded. Just keys, wood, breath, and something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. The bar was nearly empty, save for a man dozing off in the corner and a young couple whispering over nachos. No one paid much attention to me. That was the best part. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't being evaluated, tolerated, or analyzed. I wasn't too quiet or too dramatic. I was just a guy at a piano, and every note I played, tentative at first, then stronger, felt like a page being turned in a story I no longer needed to reread. The bartender clapped softly when I stopped. "Didn't expect that," he said with a grin. "You play like someone who's lived through something." I smiled. "Yeah," I said, "but I think I'm finally done surviving." Over the next few weeks, I stayed in that little town. Not hiding, just healing. I picked up odd jobs, stacking books at the library, helping at a repair shop, playing background piano at the local diner on weekends. I met people who didn't ask about my past. They just let me exist. I told them my name was Delaware. Not Delmar, just Delaware. Felt new, lighter. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. It was forwarded by someone, I still don't know who, and sealed in Cassie's handwriting. I held it for a long time before opening it. Not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I no longer needed to read it. Still, I did. It wasn't dramatic. No final plea. No excuses. Just honesty. I'm letting go. Not of regret. I'll carry that forever. But of the version of me who thought she deserved your loyalty while offering none of her own. I won't try to find you again. That's not what you need. But I want you to know. I'm getting help. I'm facing myself, finally. And if nothing else, thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to be loved. I hope someone else finds you. I hope they see you for everything I didn't. I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and never touched it again. Cassie became a memory, and I became a man again, not the shadow of one. Eventually, I left that town, but not because I was running. This time, I left with peace in my chest instead of weight. I started fresh in a new city, using the skills I always set aside for her convenience. I now play piano at a small venue on Friday nights, and I work at a community center during the day. I help kids who've been told they're too sensitive, too weird, too much. I teach them how to turn silence into music. And yes, I met someone. Not a replacement. Not a rebound. Just a person who asked questions, waited for answers, and didn't treat patience like a chore. Her name's Jory. She doesn't know everything about my past. But she knows the man I've become. And she loves that version. So that's it. That's my story. I walked away in silence. I let the past scream behind me. And in doing so, I finally heard my own voice again. Thank you for listening. Before you go, tell me, have you ever walked away from someone who didn't think you would? Or have you ever watched someone you love self-destruct and find peace without needing revenge? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more real stories right here on Reddit Confessions.